Let's get started here. So first, I want to talk to everyone about what is LDN. So a lot of practitioners, I'm sure if you went through med school, nursing school, whatever, you learned about naltrexone. Naltrexone is a drug that is commercially available in a 50 milligram dosage. It was discovered back in the 1960s, and its initial implication was to help with alcohol and opioid overuse disorder. From there, in the mid 1980s, a physician came along who was specializing in the HIV and AIDS space. And he noticed that utilizing naltrexone in small dosages had a huge impact on the immune system of his immunocompromised patients. And so he started doing some research into that in the HIV/AIDS space and improving the immune system. From there, in the 90s, some researchers up at Penn University started doing clinical trials utilizing low-dose naltrexone in Crohn's disease patients. They actually noticed that 60% of patients were going into remission from their Crohn's disease with just low-dose naltrexone alone. That's huge. I think, no other medications were on board, no steroids. What a powerful molecule this really is. So at low doses, it's really shown to help modulate the immune system. It helps to decrease inflammation. And as it pertains to our webinar here today, it helps to influence the appetite and metabolism. So as far as dosage ranges, like I said, regular naltrexone available at a 50 milligram dose. The dosages that we're talking about are extremely small. So anywhere from 1.125 up to an 8 milligram dose is what we're going to be utilizing for these patients. As you can see on the other half of the screen, the potential clinical uses, they're almost endless. I could have probably added 50 more bullet points here. I just ran out of room. So again, we're looking at a lot of autoimmune conditions. We're looking at a lot of inflammatory type conditions. You see a lot on here with metabolic syndrome. We've got the PCOS that's on there. And again, like I said, for today's purposes, we're going to be focusing on LDN for weight loss. So over here, so how does it work? So what happens is the naltrexone is going to bind to the mu opioid receptors in the brain. At low dosages, it has a really short half-life of only 4 to 6 hours. And this is what's so important about the small doses of LDN. When we're talking about the larger dosages, they're going to sit on those opioid receptors much longer. But because the low dose sits on there for a short period of time, what this does is it triggers a rebound effect in the brain. And so that increases the production of endorphins. Now, these endorphins do everything from stimulating healing, helps with immune function, pain relief, decreases inflammation. So we see a decrease in pro-inflammatory cytokines. We see a decrease in interleukin 6 and 12. And most importantly, I think when it comes to weight loss, we see an increase in growth hormone. And so this is going to help us to build and maintain muscle mass. And obviously, this is so important in the GLP realm now because we know that a lot of these patients, especially if they're not incorporating an appropriate exercise regimen using weights, they're going to start to lose muscle mass as they're losing weight. But if we can incorporate something like an LDN into a GLP protocol, something that's going to help increase that growth hormone and maintain that muscle mass, that's extremely important for these patients. So as far as weight loss goes, when we restrict calories, the body's going to go into a starvation mode. And so, the metabolic system changes, the hormone changes that are happening with all of that. The calorie restriction is going to cause thyroid hormone to start going down. LDN helps to increase the conversion of T4 to T3, T3 being the active form of thyroid. So that's a huge component to this whole weight loss cascade that we're seeing and how LDN can really have a beneficial effect. It helps to reduce the insulin resistance. And again, for these patients that have metabolic syndrome, this is such an important piece of the puzzle, I think. Decreasing the inflammation, which we all know, the visceral fat, when these patients come in with obesity, you can just look at them and just tell that they are highly inflamed. And again, we know that GLPs have a wonderful track record as far as helping inflammation. But the low dose naltrexone works from a different mechanistic standpoint than the GLPs do, which I love. So now you can hit the cause for weight loss at two different components here, with a GLP and with low dose naltrexone. So as far as supporting weight loss, it's going to help with appetite regulation. It's going to help increase satiety by modulating those endorphins that we talked about. Again, it's working on the opioid receptors in the brain, which helps affect food cravings. Reduction in inflammation, again, chronic inflammation is linked to obesity and metabolic disorders. So by improving the insulin sensitivity and reducing the inflammation, it's going to support the weight loss. Again, the impact on metabolism. Another big thing that LDN helps with is sleep. We know that, sleep is such a huge component of a weight loss regimen. Patients who aren't getting good sleep are really going to struggle with their cravings and with weight loss at the end of the day. So LDN can help enhance sleep quality in some patients. And so that can, again, lead to more success for weight loss. And again, like I've mentioned, helping with cravings and addictions. Because, at the high dosages, we know it's used for addiction. Again, at the low dosages, it still helps with compulsive overeating and those sugar, carbohydrate type cravings that we see in a lot of patients. So dosing and administration. So I'm going to go over two types of dosing that's out there with the low dose naltrexone. And so I included this slide in here, and this is going to be more for autoimmune and inflammatory control. So we start lower with these patients. And with Strive, we have this amazing flex dose tablet that we are super proud of, that we have developed. And basically, it's a 4.5 milligram tablet. And 4.5 is generally the dose that most patients are going to work up to who have autoimmune and inflammatory type issues. But you want to titrate the dose up for these patients. So we're going to start at a quarter of a tablet at bedtime for the first week. And then we'll gradually increase them to a half a tablet and then 3/4 of a tablet. And finally, the full 4.5 milligram tablet at bedtime. That's going to be optimal for, again, most of your autoimmune inflammatory patients. As far as weight loss goes, though, there is a commercial product that's out there called Contrave. Contrave is a combination of bupropion and naltrexone. It does use higher dosages of that naltrexone to help with the cravings and the appetite stimulation. So for weight loss, especially if you have a patient that maybe has plateaued on a GLP, or a patient that is coming to you specifically with issues with cravings, we go a little bit higher with them, and we start them at an 8 milligram dose at bedtime. And then we're going to work those patients up to an 8 milligram dose twice a day. So when a patient is coming to you, if you're deciding on starting them, which regimen of LDN to start them on, it's really going to be about what are their symptoms? What are you seeing? So if you've got a patient whose hormones might be out of balance, who might have Hashimoto's, who might have some other autoimmune issues going on, then starting them at the lower dosages with the 4.5, starting at a quarter and working them up is probably going to be sufficient for them. Again, if you've got the patient that's looking more specifically for some appetite control, we'll start those higher and work up to the 8 milligrams twice a day. So as far as side effects go, it's got a wonderful side effect profile. It's just such an easy drug to prescribe. Common side effects are going to be sleep disturbances and vivid dreams. This is interesting though, because the patients that report that, I come back and say to them, well, this actually means that the naltrexone is working. So a lot of these patients that end up experiencing vivid dreams are having sleep issues to begin with. So they're not getting really good REM sleep to start. And the naltrexone is actually improving that. So when they come and say, oh, I've got vivid dreams, I say, that's great. That means it's working for you. So these do tend to go away after a few weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. Most patients will see that to subside. And again, rare GI disturbances or headaches. And if necessary, you can adjust the dose down if those tend to be bothersome. But again, a very minimal side effect profile that we're talking about here. As far as monitoring goes, there's not really a whole lot that we need to look at. Just the normal weight loss parameters that you're going to be looking at in your patients, as far as, lab work and waist circumference, BMI, those sort of things. And again, like I said earlier, LDN can definitely be used alongside the GLP-1s. In fact, I think it's a wonderful addition to just about any patient, because anyone that you're seeing coming in they're definitely going to have metabolic syndrome going on. I'm sure we all have some level of inflammation going on, lots of autoimmune things going on that cause people to hold on to additional weight. So again, we've talked about who the ideal candidates are. So your metabolic syndrome, emotional and stress eaters, huge, anyone with the inflammatory type conditions. The only patients that we want to stay away from the LDN on are going to be anyone who is on a chronic opioid. Again, because the low dose naltrexone works at the mu opioid receptors and blocks that, any patient that's on a chronic opioid would potentially experience less pain control when they're using the low dose naltrexone. And I also recommend if someone's going in for surgery or anesthesia, we'll recommend stopping about 48 hours before they're getting ready to have, maybe any type of dental procedure or any type of anesthesia, just to make sure that whatever, pain therapy that they're utilizing in the short term is going to be effective for them. Again, patients severe liver or kidney impairment, we do want to stay away from. And I'm super conservative when it comes to pregnant and breastfeeding women. While it's probably safe, I always like to go with the, if you don't need it, don't use it while you're pregnant or breastfeeding. So a realistic timeline to see the benefits of it is going to be about 3 to 6 months of using the low dose naltrexone on a consistent basis. Again, I tell people it's not a magic pill, but it is a magic pill. I think it's magic from the standpoint of the inflammation control that it offers, and with minimal side effects. But it's part of a program. I remember when we first started doing GLPs, I had a patient call in and she said, well, I thought that this medication was going to make me want to eat a chicken breast and not a bag of Doritos, but I still want to eat the bag of Doritos. And I remember thinking to myself, we can't help everyone here, can we? But again, it's about setting the expectations for the patients. These medications are not going to stop you from wanting to eat the whole bag of Doritos. But it's going to help take the edge off, and certainly we all have to, make sure that we counsel these patients on making the right choices, and following through on, the lifestyle changes and the food choices and the workout programs. As far as long-term use, no problems with that. Anecdotally, I can tell you, I know patients that have been on low-dose naltrexone for decades with no issue. Again, it's a very safe medication, but as with any medication, it's always good to just reassess after a period of time, and make sure that you feel like the patient is still getting benefit from it. But certainly not a problem for anyone to stay on this long term. And what's nice is if you are interested in weaning patients off of a GLP at any point, you can continue them on the low dose naltrexone for all of those wonderful benefits that it's going to offer them as well. And then finally, I just want to talk a little bit about Strive real quick here, and what we do. And I'm super proud of the naltrexone that we have developed. We use the highest quality pharmaceutical grade ingredients that are out there. Our low dose naltrexone tablets are super clean. The only things that are in there is the naltrexone powder itself and a prebiotic filler, and that's it. And this is so important, especially for our autoimmune patients, where there are so many things that can trigger them, their autoimmune conditions. We don't use lactose, we don't use magnesium stearate, we don't use preservatives, dyes, any unnecessary fillers like that. Those are all allergenic components that can trigger people that are having inflammatory type issues to begin with. So the fact that this is just such a clean product that we offer, I'm just extremely proud of that. And that's all I have for you so far, Dr. Adam. I think we've got some questions. You and I we're gonna get into some nitty gritty here, which I'm excited about.
We've got lots of questions. This is amazing. That was wonderful, Megan. Thank you so much. I know that I learned a lot because this is new for me. And again, I said this from the beginning. The reason why we're actually hosting this, and I'm glad that you obviously talked about Strive and the purity and the quality of products that come from Strive. We are, as I discussed at the beginning, we are hosting, and I want to share this with everybody that's on here. Number one, don't leave. This is one of the biggest things on webinars. I say, don't leave, because there's special things that we want to share with you before we get to the end of this. And really, we're kind of just getting started here, because Megan and even Rhonda, they're going to start answering some of these questions. There are great questions that we've been seeing. I now can see them all because I had to click my Q&A thing. Of course, I left it out. But this series of trainings really is leading up to the event that we have coming up in Phoenix on April the 18th and 19th. And Christy, I'm going to have you actually put the link in the little questions here, the webinar chat, in a moment. And the reason why we're doing this GLP-1 summit that we're actually bringing forward to you is a live and in-person, well, and virtual, and we're offering virtual tickets for this as well. And the reason we're doing this is so that we can begin to build a community in this industry of implementing different modalities just like this, utilizing things like LDN, or in fact, I think some of the other, I shouldn't say I think, I know we're going to be talking about growth hormone secretagogues implemented with weight loss, which interesting, when you're talking about LDN, the conversion, from the thyroid to with the weight loss, increasing growth hormone, we know that by the time we're 30, we're losing 10 to 15% of that natural growth hormone production on a regular basis. I mean, we're not healing, we're not sleeping, we're not getting the things that we need. And so, why are we hosting live events? Why are we putting on a GLP-1 summit? It's because as a community, we're going to learn and we're going to dive deep into how do we implement these other profit centers? How do we truly understand how they work, learn the business side of it? And I think that's one of the biggest things. The conferences that we host, they aren't boring. They're not just theoretical conferences that just throw information out there. It's real life experience. It's how do practices grow. I saw somebody in the comments say, well, I missed that, how to build $1 million GLP-1 practice. I know you did. I'm so sorry. You don't want to miss it. But yes,
we send recordings, Adam. Sorry.
Yeah, we do. We have, and just to let everybody know, if you stay, we can see who leaves, by the way. We know there is a recording of this. You will get a recording of this. So don't worry. Slides, all that stuff will be available. To me, education is king. Education, that content is being able to utilize and have that. But again, there's nothing like, I'm a Chiefs fan and I'm sorry. I know they did horrible. But if you're an Eagles fan, I'm happy for you. still, but there's nothing like being at a game. There's a difference between watching a game on a TV and being in a game. And that's where I talk about our conferences and our seminars. And this summit is when you are there, you are shoulder to shoulder with the practitioners that are growing practices utilizing GLP-1s, just like Rhonda, where they are actually implementing different modalities so that if something happens to one, you have another. And Megan, that's what I loved about this is, if people hit a plateau with a GLP-1, being able to implement, LDN into this could really boost them to that next level. Or if they're trying to go onto a maintenance phase, there is an option that could be there that maybe people didn't know. So, Christy, if you could, I just would love to go through real quick just to share with everybody what this GLP-1 conference is going to be about and what you can expect from it.
Do you want to pull it up? I did drop a link to it in the chat if they want to look at it, but do you want to pull it up and share?
I don't have it on my computer right now. So yep. Again, it's April 18th and 19th. We can come back to it here in a little bit if you put it in
I'll
there.
get there for you. Yeah, hold on. Give me one
Okay.
second. I have it up.
There it
Okay.
is. So this is the summit. Obviously, it's at the beautiful Wigwam Resort. So number one, if you just need a little getaway, this is a place to be. With the education, the tickets right now they're 50% off. And we are going to be offering at the end of this seminar and this training, this webinar right now, an additional discount for anybody that's listening to us here. But you can see we have early bird discounts. We have multi discounts if you're bringing more than one person. Again, it's not just about learning the science and the education behind GLP-1s and other modalities that can be implemented like LDN, but it's the business side of it. What are the things that you do within practice to grow a business? And Megan, I know you understand that. I mean, as a consultant for practices, we're always looking for something more to add in. And Rhonda, I know that you understand that. I mean, you and Lindsay are the reason behind the $1 million practice previous webinar. So again, what are the biological effects? What is it that's happening within the body? How do you actually understand what a GLP-1 is? Because a lot of practitioners, that's what's crazy. We'll get onto a webinar. They don't even know what a GLP-1 is. They don't understand the side of what a peptide is, what is not a peptide, what are these drugs, and how do they work within the body? Because before we can implement something, we have to have the foundation of knowing what is it going to do. And then once you know that, it's really easy to implement because I think that's one of the biggest questions. Like if a clinician's hesitant to implement something, where do we go? And so when we can learn from the experts, that is the purpose of doing these events. So again, we have a panel of people that are coming, pharmacists from Strive. We have Rhonda, we have Lindsay, myself, and other experts that are going to be speaking, not just on the clinical aspects, but the business side of it. Building the blueprints, how to create 7 figures in 12 months. How do you market? What is compliance? And I think that's a big thing is understand the compliance in the industry. What can you say? What can't you say when you're trying to bring, patients into the door? Because again, if they're not walking through that door, they're probably not using your services. They're going somewhere else. Well, how do we get those people to walk through your door and to begin to build what you're actually needing? And so again, you get to meet, you get to learn. The thing that I love about our events is that this is not, and I'm sure if you're a physician or practitioner on this webinar right now, most of the time when you go to a training, the people up on stage feel like they're a million miles away and you cannot connect with them or talk with them. The thing that I love about our trainings is that they're accessible. You're able to walk up, talk with them, and learn from them directly. And I think our Q&A sessions are always the best because people are able to get the information that they need. So it's all about being turnkey. It's like, how do you take something if you go on a Friday and a Saturday and implement it directly on a Monday? That's ultimately what these events are. And that's what the GLP-1 Summit is ultimately about. You get to walk around with your arms up, just like Lindsay is in that picture, saying, yay, we're saving people's lives and we're transforming lives so that people can do the things that they ultimately want to do. So again, the code for this event, and don't miss out, we're doing an additional 25% off the ticket prices. The code is Strive25. This is the checkout page, Strive25. They're already 50% off. So you get an additional 25% off of that price. I believe we're running that code for the next 24 hours. So no,
it's expiring at midnight tonight. I have to.
Oh, so there you go. So,
off, so Love you guys,
There you
but
go.
if you want, if you know you're gonna go, you're not gonna get a better deal than that. But it
Yeah.
does have to expire at midnight tonight. Sorry.
And we do have, and that code also works for virtual tickets. So that's one of the things that we've been able to
I
implement
hear
in our trainings, and even in the virtual side, we do go up to the speakers and we do a lot of Q&A direct when we go live with that virtually. So people are still able to ask their questions and get the answers that they need. So again, very interactive. But that is the GLP-1 Summit. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but I know that there are a lot of questions right now that people
Yes.
are asking about everything from gabapentin and Lyrica to liver issues and implementing all of these things. So Megan, Christy, Rhonda, let's start. I guess one of the biggest things, I'm going to read this first one, like, what is the benefit of using LDN alongside a GLP-1? Is it just for additional weight loss? Is it to protect muscle mass? Is it both? When and how would you do that?
Yeah, it's going to be all the above. Again, because LDN is just such a powerful force as far as, inflammation is concerned. Again, also with helping curb those appetite stimulations and cravings. It's really just such an overarching chemical. And so it really has so many different modalities that it's going to help your patients. Again, so many of these obese patients and overweight patients that are coming into us already have metabolic syndrome. Their hormones are out of whack. Their thyroid is out of whack. They probably they might have some underlying autoimmune issues. So, not only is the low dose naltrexone helping from that standpoint, but then again, it's also going to help with curbing that appetite stimulation as well.
So, like, again, we've talked about this as a complementary to a GLP-1. Um, has it been used quite a bit just by itself without GLP-1s for weight loss?
It
Or
has, yeah. And again, LDN has been around for so long, since the early 80s. The Contrave product that came out, which is the combination bupropion and naltrexone, that's probably been out for well over a decade at this point. So the manufacturers of that product, way back in the day, as they were, submitting all of their applications and their clinical trials to the FDA, certainly at that time saw the potential utilization for naltrexone in those lower dosages to help patients lose weight. And so basically what we've done is just kind of siphoned off that naltrexone component of it. I will say the bupropion is just a horrible medication. I'm not a huge fan of it. I know it does help with weight loss, but from a side effect profile, it's just not a very good drug, in my opinion. So taking out that naltrexone component that we know works really well, has a wonderful side effect profile, a wonderful safety profile, and just utilizing that by itself, yes, that has been done for quite some time.
And do you know, like, I know that like marketing compliance is a big thing in this industry. And I can tell you when it comes to the marketing, Rhonda and her team and Lindsay and what they've done with their practice is genius. It's worked very, very well. Are there regulations like with LDN, or is it, uh, and maybe I'm phrasing this the right way, is it a good almost like gateway to get people in as a, I guess, would it be considered new way of weight loss? I know you said it's been around for a while, but not many people are utilizing it, right?
No, that's true. I would definitely think, I would say from a weight loss standpoint, it's definitely a newer player onto the scene. We've known about low dose naltrexone and how it can help with autoimmune and inflammatory type conditions for decades now. And it has certainly been used for that for quite some time. But I would say as far as coming into the weight loss space, it's definitely a newer player for sure.
So I guess then I think compliantly, I speak a lot on compliance in a lot of the trainings, but like I know drugs when they're utilized are studied for specific purposes, right? And so when you market something, I mean, I know that we have commercials everywhere on specific drugs. Like, is it non-compliant to speak specifically on LDN for weight loss, or are there regulations around that?
Um,
And
Yeah, no, and I think there are many people out here that have spoken about utilizing LDN for weight loss. And I think because it is part of an FDA approved product for weight loss, that makes it easier for us from a compliance standpoint. So I mean, from with compounding pharmacies, everything that we do, it's a little bit different. Our medications don't go through, the same FDA approval process as a commercial product does, but we are utilizing the same chemical that is in those commercial products, generally at a lower dosage.
Okay.
And so we're kind of extrapolating that data, if you will.
Yeah, perfect. I saw somebody, Chris said about thyroid. It's like a person who's taking thyroid. Oh, it's right there. A person taking thyroid hormone may need to take less after starting LDN. So, oh, they're just talking about starting slow. Like, what have you seen, I guess, clinically with somebody that is taking a thyroid medication? They start on LDN, they're trying to lose weight. And I know this is not condoning like, hey, we're going to get you off this medication or we're going to change this. Always stay with your primary, work with them through it. But what have you seen there?
Yeah, I have seen many patients with Hashimoto's be able to decrease their amount of thyroid medication after stabilizing on low dose naltrexone over a period of time. I've also seen some patients completely get off thyroid medication. It's very patient specific, but again, what the low dose naltrexone is able to do in terms of helping the body with inflammation and with helping convert the T4 into T3. Yeah, it has just wonderful impacts on those patients. So absolutely. And again, if you are utilizing it in a thyroid patient, I would make sure to follow them a little more closely because they may need dosage reductions in thyroid medication, which is great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's a long question here that I'm going to read. If I keep looking off to the side, it's because my screen is over here as I'm reading this. But where is this? Okay, can you explain the reasoning for nightly dosing? Something about being attracted to receptors and then producing a blunted effect mood. So it's better to have that occur overnight. This person says they have a patient who prefer to take LDN during the morning besides the mood effect. Could you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So low-dose naltrexone works on the endocannabinoid system, which is basically repairing itself while we sleep. So taking the naltrexone at bedtime to sit on those opioid receptors and then release off of those receptors, causing that rebound endorphin effect, that's going to help repair that mechanism that is working while we sleep. So ideally, we take it at bedtime. I do have a handful of patients over the years who, for whatever reason, weren't tolerating it, couldn't get over the sleep disturbances, maybe couldn't get over the vivid dreams portion, and did switch to taking it in the morning. It's not ideal, but I mean, taking the LDN is better than not taking it. So if that's what's necessary to them, and if that's what works for them, that's certainly okay. Again, like I said, another thing that LDN is helpful for is improving sleep. So another reason to take it at bedtime versus during the day, but it's better than take it in the morning is better than not taking it at all, in my opinion.
Okay. Is there an age limit, starting point, dosage point? I know you're talking about very low doses, but we know that obesity is also prevalent in adolescents.
Mhm.
You've obviously pointed out multiple times the safety profile of this.
Yeah.
Could you go into that a little bit as well?
Sure. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of clinical trials out there right now utilizing LDN. I can tell you from being in practice for almost 2 decades utilizing this, I have seen it used extensively in a pediatric population. I've seen it used in autistic patients. I have seen it used in ADHD patients. So the mental health arena is another one that low dose naltrexone is really starting to come into its own in as well, to help with depression, mental health issues. There are a lot of big mental health specialists out here that are huge proponents of utilizing LDN in their patients. Oh gosh, did I lose you guys?
No, you're so good.
Oh, okay, perfect. My screen just went blank, so I wasn't sure. Yes. So again, I think that's another incredible space that LDN is starting to come into its own for. So, but to get back to the question about pediatric patients, I have definitely seen it anecdotally. I have heard case reports of it working extremely well. There is actually a clinical trial out there that used it in like adolescent teenage patients with Crohn's disease. And they found it was very well tolerated in that population. So, you know, I think we could extrapolate that again just to the pediatric population in general. And as with anything with kids, you know, we always want to start low and go slow. One of the nice things at Strive is we offer the LDN in multiple strengths. We offer it in a 1.5, a 3 milligram, a 4.5, and an 8 milligram tablet. So if you were going to start it in a pediatric patient, you know, I would probably recommend starting with our lowest 1.5 milligram dose. And again, that's also available in our flex dose tablets that can be quartered. So you can start with a quarter and then a half and 3/4 and move up.
And so with weight loss and stuff, I know we talk about obviously profit centers in the clinic. So I'm shifting here a little bit because
Yeah.
you know, when we implement these modalities and these different therapies, you know, again, how do we then utilize that within practice? I don't understand well, I don't know the cost of implementing this, but what have you seen when you're consulting clinics and how they can build that into their practice?
So this is something I haven't touched on yet, but again, another reason why I love low dose naltrexone, and I kind of think it's a no-brainer to start all patients on it. Our cost at Strive, our practitioner cost for a 90-day supply of our low dose naltrexone is $72. You're at less than $1 a day for prescriber costs on that. So again, I'm super proud that we can offer that to clinicians. A lot of other, I would say the general going rate for low dose naltrexone is about $45 a month from most compounding pharmacies. But again, we offer a 3-month supply for $72. For again, that's the practitioner price. So if you were, you know, bundling LDN into a weight loss program or a GLP package, you know, you can do the math there and see that it can be, you know, a profitable revenue stream for the practice to add that in.
Amazing. Wonderful. Rhonda, are you still with us? I know you're on. I was going to ask.
She had somebody come into the clinic. She
Get a
messaged.
client. Okay. Awesome.
There's also a bunch of questions. I know, I'm sure you're seeing them in the
Yeah.
chat.
No, I'm seeing some, but I'm not seeing them all. I'm going to let you start asking some because you've seen them, some that I haven't at all.
Hit scroll for pages, but there's quite a few good ones also in the, I'm not sure if everybody can see this one. It's in the Q&A, like there's the chat and then there's the Q&A box. So there's quite a few on just various questions on, you know, dependency issues. How long does it take for the body to adapt and need to adjust? If the patient stops, do they taper down? Things like that. There's quite a few.
All great questions. It is not, it does not create dependency. It can be stopped right away. There's no need to taper down. There's no abuse potential with starting naltrexone or stopping naltrexone. I would say for patients though, if they do choose to stop and it's been a little bit of time, maybe several months or so, and they do choose to get back on it, I would go ahead and start the titration and weaning up again. But if a patient forgets to take a dose for a few days or a week or even a few weeks, there's no need to restart a titration over again on it. That's not a problem.
Are there any contraindications with other specific medications that you know of? Or, I mean,
It's
there's
only
some
going to
people
be
that have
chronic
asked.
opioids. That's
Okay.
it.
Restrictions or liver function, anything like that. There's no concern there.
No, certainly if you have a patient that with severe hepatic insufficiency or renal insufficiency, you know, we would certainly want to use caution with it and monitor appropriately. But again, for most patients, that's not going to be an issue for them. And again, I've even talked to patients who had a dental procedure. They were given, you know, an opioid narcotic to use for a few days. You know, they were concerned, called up and said, hey, should I stop the LDN? What should I do? You know, and generally speaking, because it binds to that opioid receptor for such a short period of time, you know, I've just instructed them to say, hey, you know, if you feel like the pain medication isn't working quite as well, then just stop taking your naltrexone for a few days while you're using the pain medication, and then you can start back up again.
What about like if somebody's on a GLP-1 and they're transitioning, say, to LDN? I mean, we've also talked multiple times in conversation on even like microdosing
Mhm.
GLP-1s, and then maybe even adding in something like LDN
Mhm.
with the microdosing. Is there sometimes even an overlap? Like if somebody was going to come off of a GLP-1 and start with LDN, do you feel like you need an overlap to transition over? Or do you feel like somebody could just stop and begin at that point?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I think, I mean, personally, I think starting on an LDN while they're on the GLP, just again, because we've got a totally different mechanism of action with the LDN from the GLP, we're hitting inflammation at a totally different pathway. I think it's great to combine them and have that on board, especially if you want to start weaning them off of a GLP. But if you want to just stop the GLP and start an LDN, that's also fine too. Not a problem either way.
Fantastic.
Are there
Chris, are
any
there any other?
well, like someone was asking if there's any specific indications that you might look for in determining like LDN, if maybe if they've already started a GLP-1, for instance, and trying to assess, you know, makes assessments on what's the right pathway for that patient. Are there any particular indications that come to mind that might be of use to note?
Sure. I mean, certainly just looking at the background of your patient in general, you know, if they've already come to you, and you know they have metabolic syndrome, they have had hormonal imbalances, or they have any type of autoimmune inflammatory type condition, I think adding on a GL or a LDN to the GLP is a no-brainer there. Again, I also think if you've got patients coming to you, we know that you know, there are a percentage of patients where GLPs aren't necessarily effective, unfortunately. Or sometimes those patients will hit a plateau. Again, I think adding LDN on for those patients, again, to hit that different pathway to help with appetite regulation and curb cravings is a wonderful addition on.
Fantastic. All
Yeah.
right.
And there's another great question about sort of breaking up the dosing, especially when you're trying to, you know, mitigate all of the various factors if they're on or off the GLP-1 and
Mhm.
introducing the LDN. Do you recommend breaking up the dose? Is there an ideal way to space it out, or does it really matter at the end of the day? Is it just about getting that right amount that's working?
Yeah, I mean, so if you've got the patient that's coming into you, that's still struggling with appetite, or isn't losing as much weight as, you know, you or they thought they were going to, I think utilizing that 8 milligram dose of naltrexone twice a day is ideal for those patients. And again, the patients that are more on the other spectrum with autoimmune or inflammatory type conditions, then we'll work those patients up to that 4.5 milligram dose. So really, it's just kind of about who is that patient that's coming into you? You know, what is their background? What is their, what's the cause of their weight gain for them? And that's kind of, those are the two buckets of how you're going to decide how you're going to prescribe the LDN to those patients,
Mhm.
whether it's
Have you,
working up to 4.5 or the 8 twice a day. Yeah.
with clinics that you've worked with and consulted, we have somebody asking, you know, the patient's price. A lot of times that's, you know, every clinic's going to be a little bit different. But what have you seen on average with clinics that you've worked with?
Yeah, so I think most clinics, you know, and again, going off of that $45 a month for what most clinics are charging as far as the patient price is going, we aren't that high at Strive with our patient prices. we're very proud to have some great competitive pricing in the industry. But even if you just extrapolated that $45 a month cost that most compounding pharmacies are charging, that's going to put you around the 135 mark for 3 months for patients. And then with Strive, we're charging you as the practitioner $72 for a 3-month supply. So certainly the delta between those two numbers is a potential revenue stream for the practice.
Absolutely. And come on, and it's a small amount if you're already doing GLP-1s
Sure.
to add on to have a more efficacious result, or to easily transition into something else down the road as well. I mean, it's very
Mhm.
cost effective, I would say,
Yes,
both for the practice
absolutely.
and for the patient.
Yes.
That
Mhm.
is something that I know Rhonda and Lindsay talked about on our last webinar, that I think Rhonda kind of mentioned too, maybe at the beginning of this one, about
Mhm.
keeping that pricing separate in terms of the medications from the overall pricing of the program that someone might be participating in, which is something we will dive a little bit deeper into in, those strategies and how to leverage that in the profit centers when we focus more on the business side of these clinics and these medications.
Yeah, I mean, I wish on our webinars that we could go into every little detail on the business side, and then the medication side, and then, but we really want to obviously dive into I say the nitty gritty of everything when it comes to business growth, marketing growth, and then again, how do you price out a lot of these therapies and modalities for clients? But we try to keep a lot of that stuff separate, in the sense, like Rhonda had said, like they have their, in a sense, their professional fees, that they're providing and they're asking for, and then they have their medication. So they sometimes will not bundle, so that you can always make sure that it's separate. So if something does happen, and let's say a medication goes away, you still have your professional fee, because I think that is one of the most important things. People ask, well, why would I attend an event like a GLP-1 summit? Well, first of all, the knowledge that you get sets you above the bar of everybody else out there, because you can have a lot of people that are offering LDN, you can have a lot of people offering GLP-1s, but did they just all of a sudden start giving that to patients because they saw this as a profit for their clinic, or did they actually go through training? Did they build up their knowledge base to be the expert of the industry? And I think that's really what this comes down to, is the certification that we offer. Now, we are not offering, these aren't continuing education credits, but we do offer a certification and understanding how to utilize GLP-1s, how to build that in your practice, how to build the other profit centers like LDN, and other types of modalities, which will come weeks to follow. We're going to keep, I think we have one on, um, we're doing one even on hair,
Mhm.
which is crazy because I have none, but that's okay. It's not coming back. Um, and then from growth hormone implementation, and with your GLP-1s, and again, there's so many different things that you can bundle and package and piece together and add into the GLP-1 programs that you may or may not have, to really skyrocket your practice. And I think that's what this is about. So we've had some incredible questions. I'm really glad that we've been able to go through all those. Christy, is there anything else? I know sometimes I forget things. I'm going to say this one. This is the accurate. Tell tonight at 11:59, right? Not 24 hours. I messed that one
Yeah,
up. The
sorry.
ticket to the GLP-1 live event. You will not want to miss this. You don't want to miss being in front of these presenters, these educators, these people that have truly, it's not just about people sharing the information, people that are living through this information and implementing it and growing practices. And that's really what we need, is we need to be able to rub shoulders with those people and hear from them. What mistakes did they make that you won't have to make? How can you speed your path up to get there? That's really what it's about. So when we get into this, you have different options. Again, we've got the website. If we could put that back into the chats for them, we are offering 25% off until midnight tonight, actually 11:59, so right before midnight. Not for 24 hours, but it's Strive 25. That is the code. And again, thank you, Strive, for sharing this information with us, and providing the people to share this for the providers that are on here right now.
Yeah.
Christy,
Thanks so
did
much
I
for
forget
having us, Adam.
anything?
We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And we're looking forward to the additional webinars that we have coming, and definitely the summit that's coming up in April for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's going to
and
be a
I
lot of
think
fun.
it's also, I will make sure, had a lot of questions about recordings. Yes, we are recording all of them. I will make sure everybody gets email. If you registered for this one, we have, Adam and I have your email address, so we will make sure we invite you to future webinars as well from this registration, and send you recordings. So you'll be a part of the community now. You're on the in team, in with us. So we'll let you know. And we hope to see a lot of you, virtually and in person at the live event. It's a lot of fun. It's a great mix of this deep dive into education and protocols, and from elevating your patient practice that way, and but also the business side, right? We do a very thorough scrub of business tactics and how to leverage profit centers and how to keep you flourishing and growing, to keep the doors open so you can keep serving the community and healing people, helping people. So that's kind of what
Absolutely.
we look forward to at the summit. But we'll also see you on the webinars.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're going to leave it open just for a little bit. We're going to make sure that the links are down in there so that you can actually go and check that out. If you have any questions, reach out. Christy, what is oh, there's a question about, I'll do one more about dentists.
I've had alcohol and dentist come up like 3 times. They
Three
want to,
times.
yeah.
Let's answer that right before we get
Not
off
that
here.
dentists are drinking the alcohol. I meant like
Yeah.
economic.
So,
So as far as like prescribing from dentists, is
yes.
that the question?
Yeah.
So LDN has actually been used to help with periodontal disease and the inflammation that is caused by that. So I certainly think that is within the prescribing realm of a dentist. So absolutely, I think as long as they're prescribing it. Now, certainly, I think you'd want to have the appropriate, patient documentation in their file for utilizing LDN for that person. But absolutely, there is literature out there talking about it used in periodontal disease. As far as alcohol goes, again, we're talking about less than a tenth of the dose, generally speaking, from the full naltrexone dose. Naltrexone is utilized anywhere from 50 to up to 300 milligrams for alcohol and opioid dependency. So, again, with anything, I tell patients always be cautious. If we're looking to, enhance health and wellness and lose weight, we shouldn't be out there binge drinking, having 5 or 6 drinks. I mean, maybe unless you were an Eagles fan on Sunday night. I think they got a little crazy out there in Philly. But, other than that, most patients should really be, sticking to, low to no alcohol use. If we're really looking to, enhance weight loss and enhance wellness. So that's just what I counsel my patients on. They're not going to have, horrific reactions if they end up, having 1 or 2 glasses too many, but they might not also feel that great either.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind.
Right. And it's about lifestyle choices. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, when we're implementing things like LDN or GLP-1s or any of these other things, it's ultimately about how can we begin to transition the lifestyle choices, and anything in moderation, I
Yeah.
say, is okay. But yes, that's I think that's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
We do have a question about clinic owners. Actually, a lot of our training events, we have clinic owners that bring their whole team. They bring in their front office, their back office, they bring in their practitioners, ultimately because it's not just a conference on the science, it's a conference on the science and the implementation, which is the business side of it. So that's really one of the things that differentiates our trainings from most, because again, we can have the knowledge and the understanding of what these things are and these profit centers, but if we can't then get those profit centers running, how do we market these things? How do we, what from front office to back office and vice versa? We want to make sure that you're able to have that turnkey system to implement and go on day one.
A lot of owners like to be there as well because we also do a pretty thorough deep dive into, compliance and regulatory issues and concerns and FDA, and in addition to how to, overlay that into your marketing practices. So definitely more on the business operation side of your clinic.
Yeah. There is somebody's asking, I think it's Claude asking about getting a message about missing required data shipping or something when they're trying to buy the ticket. But gastrophoresis, real quick, I want to answer this one, and then I know we're running. People have to probably get back to their patients, but there was a question about using this with gastrophoresis. Was this answered? I don't remember speaking on or saying anything about that, but anything on that?
Well, LDN is not going to slow GI motility down. So it's really going to be tackling the inflammation that's associated. So would it be safe to use for gastroparesis? I don't see why not. I mean, certainly we always want to be super cautious in those patients to begin with, because that's just that's a really serious condition, certainly. But no, it's not going to have any effect on motility. So we wouldn't be concerned about it really exacerbating or causing that.
Awesome. All right. Thank you all so much. Megan, thank you for your knowledge, your
Yeah,
expertise.
absolutely. Thanks
I
for having
learned
us.
a lot.
Yeah.
And we're excited for the continued series that we're going to be having here with Strive, and obviously other modalities and profit centers that can be implemented in. But yes, thank you all for attending. Thank you for listening to myself, for meeting us and our team. And we hope to see you in Phoenix coming up here April 18th and 19th at the GLP-1 Summit. Come and get that blueprint on how you can actually skyrocket your practice. Build $1 million practice. You know why? Because you deserve to. Honestly, you work hard. You went to school to learn these things, and you deserve to be profitable in what you do and help patients at the same time. We're going to get rid of what I say, the doctor's poverty mindset of like, I just want to help. Because trust me, I was there. I wanted to help everybody and just give it away for free. But you can't help a lot of people if you're doing it for free constantly. So build that practice, learn how to do it from the experts. We look forward to seeing you there. Again, Megan, Strive, thank you so much. Christy, thank you. And y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Hopefully we will see you all next week on our next webinar. All right. See y'all.
Take care.
Bye.
Stop. Go ahead.